Welcome to Hit or Miss. This is the series where I review anime, games, TV shows, movies, you name it. If it's something that piques my interest, I'm going to review it. And today we're talking about Suzume. Now, this is a film that I came into kind of blind. I watched one trailer after I heard that Shinkai was coming out with a new movie. I checked out the trailer. I was like, all right, I'm sold. Hey, I'm watching this. And I didn't really watch anything else. If I'm being honest, I didn't remember anything from the trailer. So I pretty much went into this movie completely blind, and it was a ride. It was honestly an experience I enjoyed, because when it comes to Shinkai, the narrative is not exactly amazing and it's not exactly terrible. It kind of leaves a lot to be desired. And when you kind of look at all his films in the past, they all kind of have like a samey type of feel to them. So coming into this film, I didn't know what to expect, but I was just kind of expecting more of that. But following Weathering With You, I honestly didn't know what to expect. So first, let's start off with the visuals. I would go back to the theater just to rewatch the visuals alone. I'm just going to say that straight up. The visuals, the animation, it's just chef's kiss. I fucking love it. I cannot get enough of every fucking film this guy makes. It is one of the main reasons why I always go to a theater to watch his films. For me, I don't really go out to the movies a lot. So whenever I do get an opportunity and I see something like this coming out, hey, you got me booked. I'm going to the theaters right now. I'm going to go watch it because they're just beautiful. And while I could go watch it on that TV over there, why not watch it on the big screen? Got the big boom speakers and shit like that. Hey, that's a win for me. So that I just wanted to, right off the bat, I mean, it's already a given. If you've seen the trailers, then you know the movie's already gorgeous based on that alone. Or if you've seen his previous films. But yes, continuing on, he continues a trend, and this movie is gorgeous as fuck. It is just so well done, and I enjoyed every second. I just kind of sat there a couple of moments, just like shocked in awe because of how beautiful it was. Next up, let's talk about the soundtrack. I know it sounds like I might be over exaggerating everything and I might be making it sound better than it really is, but you have to trust me on this one. It is just so fucking good. For everything that I sometimes dislike whenever I watch his films, I do enjoy the music and the visuals so much, and this delivers it. I always find soundtracks every time the movie finishes. I go on Spotify, I look up the soundtrack, I start adding songs to my playlist, because throughout the entire time that I watch the movie, when I hear tracks going, I kind of just want to whip out my phone and go Shazam and start trying to figure out what song is playing so I can listen to it later. It just all comes together so well. The visuals and the music, it's just like it's just a beautiful package. That's the only way I can describe it. It's just like eye candy, eyegasm for your fucking eyes on the screen. And then when you pair it with the sound, it just comes together and just makes such a well enjoyable experience that I almost wish I had headphones on just so I can hear the music just straight in my ears and just hear it. Just I'm at a loss for words as how to describe it, but it's so good. Shinkai has delivered once again. For me, I keep comparing this to Your Name and Weathering With You, and it's gonna happen. It's kind of the curse of making a film that was as, I guess, impactful as Your Name. And for me, this movie really, it reminds me a lot of Your Name, but I'll get to that in a second. But for me, the soundtrack's easily a 10 out of 10. Now, for some people, you might think that's crazy high. Wasabi, are you sure you're really rating it a 10 out of 10? Yes, trust me. If there are two things you can expect Shinkai to deliver on, it is typically the OST and visuals. And those are both stellar. Now, let's move on to the only, it's not even really a downside, but it's kind of like a mid-side. It's the narrative. Let's talk about it. Let me take my excitement and put it a little bit back down to reality. The narrative is all right. I'm just going to be honest. It's not amazing. It's not terrible, but it's not like it didn't blow my socks off. It wasn't to the point where I started going on Google looking up theories and trying to figure out all this crazy shit that happened in the movie. It's just all right. I don't say that's a bad thing per se. It's just I want to set your expectations ahead of time if you plan to go see this movie. Do not go into this expecting some AAA write-in. It's going to be the greatest shit you ever watch. No, it's not happening. This movie is Road Trip the Anime. That is the best way I can describe this movie. So essentially what the narrative is you have Suzume and she meets a guy, and the entire premise is to go across Japan and close doors to try and prevent a disaster from destroying Japan. And the guy she meets ends up turning it into a chair, and the ultimate goal is to now close those doors and to save his life and change him back to his normal form. That's pretty much where I say it's Road Trip to Anime, because you are going through different parts of Japan to try to close these doors, and it kind of just brings out that feeling of as if let's say you wanted to go on a road trip, right? It kind of gives out the experiences that you would like to have if you went on it. Now, I'm not saying you particular, but just the idea, at least for me, the little adventures that happen on the little trips going around trying to close those doors, it's just very reminiscent. It makes me just feel like yeah, I would like that. That's kind of cool. You know, meeting people, how nice they are, the side characters, just the people you meet along the road. It's kind of like the friends that you meet along the way. It's kind of like that. And I feel like the movie does that pretty well. And it reminded me of Your Name in a lot of different ways because of that, because it's just a little side stories that go along on your journey. Now, I know a lot of people have shared their opinions that a lot of the characters seem kind of flat, one-sided. A lot of the emotional impacts of the movie, I'm not going to go into spoilers, but some of the emotional parts that were supposed to hit you didn't really hit a lot of people. And for me, it was okay. I mean, I knew like the moments that were supposed to be impactful were impactful enough for me, but they weren't like over the top, like, wow, that really just left me like speechless. It was just like, all right, it kind of worked. But with how the story was built and how a lot of the characters didn't really get fleshed out at all, it was kind of hard for those emotional moments to feel more impactful. And there was a specific part, I'll just mention a little bit of it, but they try to kind of shoehorn a little romance into it. And a lot of people felt it was kind of forced, kind of weird. For me, I could see where they were talking about. Obviously, I'm not going to go into spoilers and describe it more than that, but if you watch the film, then you'll know what I'm talking about. But a lot of people felt that it was unnecessary. It didn't need to make sense. It should have been just more of a friendship type of relationship that they were building up towards, instead of trying to force in this whole romantic type feelings that were spread out as a story continued. I don't think it needs to be shoehorned into this movie. I think it would have been fine without it, but I don't think it was exactly a detriment to the story. I think the best way I saw someone describe Shinkai's writing is he needs an editor. There's a lot of potential that can make the movie really good, especially at least from a narrative perspective, but he needs an editor, someone to tidy it up and make it more cohesive and remove a lot of the unnecessary jank. If he did that, it would be a really great story. It's not to say that it's terrible, but it's not exactly mind-blowing. It's not something that I would go and rewatch the movie for. For me, what this movie does well is the soundtrack, the visuals, and just having a good feeling. I know that's not really it's kind of like a cliche way to describe a movie, but that's the best way I can describe it. Like, if I want to feel good, have a good time, I would watch the movie, and I would watch it again. This is a film that I actually would want to rewatch. Whether with you, I'm gonna be honest, the narrative, while the movie is, pretty, is gorgeous, and the soundtrack is decent, is not, I never felt like I wanted to watch the movie again. This one, as I was watching, I was like, you know what? I could see me rewatching this again. Now, do I rate this movie above Your Name? No shot. Not even close. Do I rate it as kind of close? Yeah. Here's my scale. I would put Your Name as like 100%. Weathering with You is like a 50%, and then I would put Suzume as like a 75%. If I had to put scales between the movies, that's where I personally would rate it. Now, you might disagree with me, you might think differently, but this is just personally how I view it. Weathering with You just had no impact on me whatsoever. I just didn't care for it. Suzume at least had some of that there. Your Name is always going to have a special place in my heart. I don't think anything will ever top that. It's not Shinkai's fault. He made a movie that was right time, right place, and it just hit all the right points, and it gravitated towards a lot of people, and it was just great. It was like a lightning in the bottle that can't be recaptured again. And maybe this statement will age like milk, and he will be able to redo it again, but I think it's impossible. And I don't think he's trying to either. I think he just keeps trying to experiment, at least to some extent. I mean, obviously a lot of the movies that he makes still have kind of a samey feeling to him, but he does at least try and go outside the regular comfort zone of his movies. Overall, I would give this movie a hit. I don't think this is a movie though that I would go rush out to see in theaters unless you're already a fan of Shinkai's works to begin with. Besides that, this is probably more like a wait for streaming services and then go watch it then. Again, it's not, like I said, it's not a bad movie to go watch on theaters, but it's not something that I would prioritize right off the bat and go watch. If you could, I say just wait for it to come on streaming services unless you really want to see the visual eye candy and the soundtrack and everything else. But yeah, those are my opinions. Overall, great film. Anyways, you made this far into the video, consider giving a like, subscribing to the channel, leave me a comment below what you think. Have a great day. Yeah.